The Day of the Jackal, a summary and analysis. I was scrolling through my X timeline, not really looking for anything, when I saw an update from a journalist. Frederick Forsyth has died. It hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't thought about him in years, but the name instantly pulled me back to the late 90s. That was a strange time in my life. I had just shut down my computer training and software development business. Things felt uncertain, heavy, and then I picked up The Day of the Jackal. It wasn't just a book, it was a way out, even if briefly. A perfect distraction. Cool, precise, gripping. The X update prompted me to pick The Day of the Jackal for the summary and analysis. What is The Day of the Jackal about? The Day of the Jackal is a political thriller written by Frederick Forsyth. It tells the story of an anonymous professional assassin, codenamed the Jackal, who is hired to kill French President Charles de Gaulle. The book is a race against time. The killer is cold, methodical, and almost invisible. And the French authorities, once they discover the plot, must try to catch someone whose identity is completely unknown. Why is the book so famous? Three reasons. First, its structure. It's told with journalistic precision. Every move is described like it's real. It reads like non-fiction, but it's fiction. Second, the tension is relentless. You already know de Gaulle wasn't assassinated, yet the book still keeps you on edge. That's the power of Forsyth's writing. And third, it gave birth to the modern political thriller. Before this, spy fiction was often stylized or dramatic. The Day of the Jackal made it real, clinical, chilling, and intelligent. Summary of The Day of the Jackal. The story begins with real political tension. In 1962, France is bitterly divided over Algeria. After years of war, President Charles de Gaulle has agreed to grant Algeria its independence. Many in the military, especially the far-right faction called the Organisation Armée Secrète, see this as betrayal. They believe de Gaulle has sold out France, that he is weak, that he deserves to die. One group of OAS militants tries to kill him. They set up a carefully planned ambush in Petit Clamart, but it fails. De Gaulle survives, calmly ducking bullets while his driver speeds away. The would-be assassins are captured. The leader, Bastien Thierry, sorry I don't know how to pronounce his name, is executed. The rest scattered around, hunted by the French police and intelligence. But they don't give up. The remaining members, including Colonel Marc Rodin, know they can't rely on their own network anymore. Every one of their safe houses has been compromised. Every phone call tapped. Every associate followed. So they come up with something radical. Hire an outsider. A professional. Someone who doesn't care about France, Algeria or politics. Just the job. They meet in secret in Vienna and reach out through underworld channels. One man answers. He gives no real name. He simply says, "Call me Jackal." And so begins the real story. The Jackal is unlike any they have worked with before. He is calm, impossibly self-assured. He lays out his price, $500,000, half upfront, half after the job. That's a huge sum. But the OAS agrees. For them, this is about symbolism. Killing de Gaulle means reviving their cause, striking fear, making history. But the Jackal isn't moved by any of that. He's not ideological, he's clinical. He accepts the job, then disappears into the shadows to begin his work. And here is where the novel shifts gears. What follows is a masterclass in planning. The Jackal spends months preparing. He travels across Europe under false names. He commissions a custom-made collapsible sniper rifle, one that can be disguised in parts and carried undetected. He experiments with bullets, choosing one that will explode on impact. He gets fake passports, bribes officials, scans de Gaulle's public schedule. He leaves nothing to chance. Forsyth writes these sequences with chilling detail. It's like reading a manual on assassination. There is no melodrama, just cold logic. You start to admire the precision, even as you feel the unease grow. Back in France, the OAS is crumbling. One of its members gets arrested. Under brutal questioning, he gives up just one detail. They have hired a foreigner. That's enough to start a quiet panic in the French government. De Gaulle's inner circle assigns the best man they have, Deputy Commissioner Claude Lebel, to lead the investigation. Lebel is old, balding, uncharismatic, but he is brilliant and relentless. His job? Identify a man with no name, no background, and no known affiliation before he strikes. The book now splits between two tracks. On one side, the Jackal, methodical, cool, watching. He changes identities like shirts. At one point, he becomes a Danish school teacher. then an English businessman, then a French tourist. He seduces a noble woman to gain access to the quiet country estate. When someone gets too close, he kills without hesitation. Not out of rage, but necessity. He doesn't enjoy killing, it's just part of the plan. On the other side, Lebel. Working from crumbs, he interviews diplomats, connects dots, checks visa records, pushes for international cooperation. He's not flashy, but every page you spend with him, you realize he's the only man in France who can stop this ghost. The novel's genius is in how these two men move closer to each other without knowing it. One tries to vanish, the other builds a net to catch a shadow. Their movements are as different as their personalities. The Jackal relies on deception, adaptability, and charm. Lebel uses persistence, intellect, and patience. They never meet face to face until the last few pages, but their struggle, silent, invisible, is as gripping as any fist fight. As the plot thickens, the Jackal's path gets more dangerous. He must kill a forger in Genoa who knows too much. He strangles a woman in France who guesses his secret. Each act increases the stakes. Each body narrows the trail Lebel must follow. Yet every murder also costs the Jackal time and focus. By now, we are in Paris. It's August 1963. Liberation Day is coming. President de Gaulle will appear in public honoring fallen soldiers. The Jackal knows this is his best and perhaps only chance. Security will be tight, but de Gaulle must appear on a balcony for the wreath-laying ceremony. The Jackal sneaks into Paris under yet another identity. He hides out in a boarding house, disguises himself, prepares his weapon. The rifle is smuggled in pieces inside crutches as he poses as a one-legged veteran. He sets up his sniper nest inside an apartment facing the parade route. Lebel, meanwhile, is racing against time. He knows the hit will happen soon. He knows the killer is in Paris, but he doesn't know where. The tension is unbearable. Forsyth writes with a quiet, almost suffocating rhythm. You can feel the sweat on Lebel's back. You can hear the Jackal loading his weapon. Then comes the climax. The ceremony begins. De Gaulle steps into the open. Jackal lines up his shot. He fires. But at that precise moment, de Gaulle bends down to kiss a war widow's hand. The bullet misses, just barely. In the silence that follows, Lebel's men storm the building. The Jackal manages to kill one officer and almost escapes. But Lebel is ready. He shoots. The Jackal dies instantly. They search his belongings, no ID, no name. His real passport, if it exists, is never found. The Jackal vanishes in death as he lived in life. Anonymous. And that's the end of it. De Gaulle survives, the system holds, but the story leaves a shadow. The Day of the Jackal isn't about de Gaulle. It isn't even really about France. It's about how things fall apart quietly. About how one person, clever, detached, and hidden, can come terrifyingly close to changing the course of history. The most interesting part, you already know how it ends. De Gaulle wasn't assassinated. And yet, Forsyth builds tension like you have never heard the story before. That's the mark of literary precision. You don't race through this novel just for what happens. You read it to see how it happens, how close it comes, how thin the margin is between survival and catastrophe. There is no heroism in the traditional sense. Lebel doesn't get a medal. The Jackal doesn't give a villain's speech. There is no dramatic monologue. It ends with a file being closed, a grave being filled, a question being left unanswered. When was The Day of the Jackal written? The Day of the Jackal was written and published in 1971. It was Frederick Forsyth's debut novel. What motivated Forsyth to write the book? Forsyth was broke. That was the first push. In 1970, he had returned to England after covering the Nigerian Civil War as a freelance journalist. He had no money, no job, and no publisher waiting for him. But he had an idea and some time, so he sat down and wrote a novel in just over a month. His motivation wasn't just financial though. He was frustrated by how sloppy many thrillers were. As a journalist, he had an eye for detail and accuracy. He thought, what if I wrote a story like a journalist would? Fact-based, grounded, precise, but still a thriller. He chose Charles de Gaulle as the target because de Gaulle had survived several real assassination attempts. The most famous was in 1962, the Petit Clamart ambush, where a group of French army officers from the OAS tried and failed to kill him. That real-world event gave Forsyth his what if? What if someone much better had been hired? That single thought became the spine of the story. He then reverse engineered the novel. How would a real assassin plan it? How would the police respond? He mapped out every move before writing a word. So in a way, the book was born from two things. the urgency of needing to make a living, and the ambition to raise the bar for thrillers. And he did. Some important questions that you may have about the Day of the Jackal. Why does the book feel so real? Because Frederick Forsyth was a journalist before he became a novelist. He researched every detail, from French politics to the behavior of intelligence officers. The planning of the assassination feels like something out of a real CIA file. Even though it's fiction, it's grounded in facts. That's what gives it its power. Why do we feel empathy for the Jackal even though he is the villain? Because Forsyth doesn't make him a cartoon. He's not sadistic. He's not driven by ideology. He's a professional doing a job. He's calm, polite, intelligent. As readers, we admire competence, even when it's terrifying. But Forsyth never glorifies him. He simply shows us a man so committed to his craft that we can't look away. Is The Day of the Jackal a political novel? Not exactly. Politics is the backdrop, not the message. The story is more about process, how things work behind the curtain. Government surveillance, security loopholes, identity forging. It's a procedural thriller more than a political statement. That said, it does show how ideology can push people into extremism. What makes Lebel such a compelling character? He is the opposite of the Jackal. Where the assassin is sleek, Lebel is modest. Where the Jackal uses deception, Lebel relies on persistence. He is not a genius, he just never gives up. And in that quiet resolve, we see the power of integrity. He is the type of character who makes you believe that system can still work if the right people are in charge. What does the ending mean? It's haunting. The Jackal dies, but we never know who he really was. That's the point. Evil can be faceless. Danger doesn't always come with a name or motive. Sometimes, the scariest thing isn't why someone did it, it's the fact that they could. Final thoughts. The Day of the Jackal endures because it doesn't cheat. I was surprised when so many people on my timeline said that they have read the book. It doesn't manipulate your emotions, it doesn't pander, it just lays out the facts and lets the story do the rest. Even after all these years, it feels relevant. In an age of surveillance and information warfare, a single person with no digital trace still feels like the most dangerous threat of all. Forsyth understood that, and he turned it into one of the finest political thrillers ever written. Quiet, sharp, lethal. Just like the man called Jackal. I hope you have liked the summary and analysis of The Day of the Jackal. If yes, please like the video and subscribe to my channel so that you receive a notification whenever I upload book summaries.